It's time for race 3 here at COTA, the Blue Marble Radical Cup North America Series, about to roll out of pit lane. And for the final time here at Circuit of the Americas, they'll be coming on out a pit stop race. Nearly 30 cars taking to the grid this time round. So, the Texas Sunshine is back out in full force, as is a strong field of the Blue Marble Radical Cup North America Series. Double digits starting this weekend in each class, and you can see the heat haze coming off the surrounding area. The cars rolling out onto the circuit. John Field starting from the pole alongside Judd Miller. And the big news after race 2 is that we will not have Robert Rossi in this race. Robert Rossi leading the Platinum class points. And I must say, this is a huge breaking story. Not entirely sure what has prevented Robert from taking the start of this race. Earlier today, he had to retire with just a broken rear diffuser. In fact, he probably could have kept going during the race. There were definitely sparks flying underneath the car, but possibly running into one of the turtles or the more extreme curbing on the inside or outside of this circuit. But nothing really preventing him from getting going again. Wisco Racing prepared to go racing in this race. And whether Robert was just feeling under the weather or what have you, we're not really sure, but he is not going to start this motor race. And that's changed the complexity not only of this race, but of the championship in the Platinum class. And it's really equalized all of the points. Steve Jenks bowed out of a race back at Road America. And some other mishaps as well. Judd Miller didn't start a race at Road America either. And so all of a sudden, the points championship in the Platinum class is going to condense after this race finishes. The moment, Rossi has got quite the lead, around about 40 points over Steve Jenks. But with so many points on offer in this race, that's going to close right down. So all of a sudden, Steve Jenks, who thought he was out of the championship fight, is well and truly in it, as is John Field and Judd Miller. And that is the 3 cars at the front of this field. Of course, Jason Plotke, who will start from 4th, will be looking for another podium. An outstanding job he's done in the 119 machine for Apex Motor Club and Crown Concepts. So look out for some fast-paced racing in the Platinum class. Pro 1500, pole sitter for this one, Gustavo Raffles. 3 from 3 in terms of poles, and he'll be looking to make it 3 wins, a hat-trick here at Circuit of the Americas. He'll start alongside Jim Booth in another Platinum class car. Then we're back to Greg Gorski and Scott Wagner, so the 1500's well and truly in the mix of the Platinum cars. Aurora Strauss out qualifying, if you will, Elaine Dursey, and of course the grid set by the fastest laps in the previous race. So look out for a great battle between them again. Palmer Miller's right up there as well, starting from 11th. Jason Greenwood from 12th. Chris McMurray, the fastest of the Pro 1340s, in 13th, alongside Kent Myers. Then we're back to Austin Riley and David Flint, David Albin, Dan Decker, Ben Blander, Vince Switzer, Reed Stewart, Mike Anzaldi, who's vying for that Pro 1340 championship, starting right back in Position 22, and it's Mark Allen, Richard Gerosha, Hugh Leahy, Evan Wolf. And all the cars trundling around the final corner. John Field leading the pack very slowly onto the main straightaway. 2 rows side by side is what the race directors asked for. That's essentially what he's got. And now the green flag. We look for one, and it has come out finally. The car's 3, 4, 5 wide, back in the pack. And Austin Riley right to the inside having a look, as is Kent Myers. So, and as all of that happens, I think it was Elaine Dursey going around the outside. He'd sort of pre-planned that, talking about that in the Radical Hospitality Suite. But John Field, his strategy for starting slow has worked. He is in the lead from Judd Miller, who would like to convert this weekend into a 2-win weekend. Of course, this race features the mandatory pit stop, and the pit stop window will open about 15 minutes into this race, as we could see John Field just cutting that corner, and it didn't work for him at all. And we've got a spin further back, and that was the number 8 of Scott Wagner. John Field struggling a little bit at the moment on the cold Hankook tyres. Definitely Judd Miller seems more comfortable in the 64 machine. And further back, Jim Booth lunging to the inside. Chris McMurray with a fantastic start in the 1340s. And Judd Miller defending from Steve Jenks. Wow, so somehow Chris McMurray's gone from 13th to about 6th here. And this is great racing at the front of the pack, and we've had someone else off into the gravel, and that was Greg Gorski in the 24 machine for One Motorsports. And alongside Jim Booth, Gustavo Raffles with a bit of a hip check there. Further back in the pack, Jason Greenwood in the 529, carving up through the field in the SR10 in the Platinum Class car. Elaine Dursey sitting pretty. So as they come past the post for the first time, we'll pick up the order. And Dursey extremely close to Gustavo Raffles in 1500. As John Field defends again a little bit, as does Judd Miller, who's under all sorts of pressure from Steve Jenks. Then we're back to another one of the Platinum Class cars, I think. Indeed, Jim Booth there, Gustavo Raffles, Chris McMurray running 6th, the fastest of the Pro 1340s, and he has come up from 12th on the grid, as we mentioned before. Meanwhile, this battle at the front of the field for the Platinum Class is outstanding. And again, Gustavo Raffles mixing it up with these faster Platinum Class cars. He's back ahead of Jim Booth. Elaine Dursey doing a solid job, second in Pro 1500. Palmer Miller running 3rd in that class. Aurora Strauss relegated to 4th at the moment. Palmer Miller looking for a championship, and certainly looking to cement that this weekend. As into the hairpin with a vague look, Steve Jenks on Judd Miller. Interesting part of the circuit around 14 and 15. Double apex corner, very, very slow, easy to pick up a little bit of understeer through here. You've just got to keep it tidy. It's easy to rush those corners and find yourself losing momentum on the outside. And the rhythm that Gustavo Raffles has through here is outstanding. You can see that as he approaches the back of Jim Booth's SR10. Drivers pushing hard. Judd Miller hanging on to the back of John Field. And definitely you'd think at this stage that Gustavo Raffles, if he could find some clean air and wasn't being bothered, if you will, by Jim Booth in the Platinum Class car, that he would pull away. But at the moment, he's not. And neither is Steve Jenks, who has another look to the inside of Judd Miller going into turn one. The big bump on the exit of that corner, unsettling all of the SR10s as they streak through 3, 4, 5 and 6. The high-speed S's. It's almost flat out here at COTA. John Field using all the curb he can. And Aurora Strauss, disaster. We could just see one of the safety vehicles on course there, picking up the stricken turn 17 car of Aurora Strauss. Meanwhile, John Field using all the track and cutting the corner there yet again. No doubt that will get the watchful eye from the race director. Probably can't do that too much as Judd Miller lunges into turn 20 and makes the move stick. And this has given Steve Jenks the opportunity as well. So down the long straightaway here at COTA, it's almost 3 wide as Steve Jenks is run right to the inside by John Field, who now tucks underneath the 68 machine as they head down into the hairpin. Field to the outside now, tries to outbrake the 68. Who will make it stick? Of course, this is where they come into the stadium section. The switchback is possible, and whilst Field's ahead at this moment, you've just got to think that Steve Jenks will look to the inside. Field covers it well. And so Field has gone from first to second, nearly to third, all in the space of half a lap. Meanwhile, Jim Booth is still duking it out with an out-of-class car being the leader in the Pro 1500 class. Gustavo Raffles sitting pretty to make it 3 from 3 here at COTA. Doesn't need to get involved in all of this, but he's probably looking in his mirrors, realizing that Elaine Dersey is doing a good job, and we've got the full course caution. So this gives everyone an opportunity to stack up now, and Dersey will be licking his lips. He needed something to claw back onto the back of Gustavo Raffles. Meanwhile, Judd Miller will be furious. He'd stretched out a few car lengths on John Field. This might give Jason Plotke and the 111 machine, that pink and grey car, the opportunity to close up as well. Certainly would have expected to be a bit higher up after the first few laps. And Aurora Strauss just getting out of the car for Monticello Motor Club. And that's her first retirement in the series this year. And see the frustration as she gets into the tow truck. So the safety car out on the course. Should be a relatively quick cleanup given that the cut through is just there. And we need to pick up this battle in Pro 1340 because the points on the line will dictate championships. And at the moment, Mike Anzaldi is doing what he needs to do in front of Austin Riley, trying to claw back some points after what was a disastrous race 2 here. And after coming into the weekend 8 points ahead, he is just 11 points behind Austin Riley going into this final race here at COTA. At the moment, he would claw back 5 points. But if he can get ahead of Chris McMurray, which is quite conceivable for the reigning champ, Mike Anzaldi, to do that, especially after a full course caution, this could be his best opportunity to put a car between him and Austin Riley. Critically, though, put 10 points between himself and Austin Riley. That would tie things up. 10 points in this race would get things back almost even Stevens. Austin Riley would head back into the final round at Sonoma. just 1 point clear. So things very, very tight at the top of the Pro 1340 Championship. Chris McMurray looking for race wins, not the championship. He can certainly play a pivotal role in this one. Likewise with Palmer Miller, really on course for a championship. Gustavo Raffles looking for the race wins. Miller just looking to tour. Certainly wants to make sure he makes a mark in these final few races. At the end of the day, you want to be a worthy champion. The best way to do that is have plenty of strong results. He certainly has this year. Certainly had a bit of luck on his side as well. Running third at the moment would be a strong result, a strong podium here yet again for Palmer Miller in the Pro 1500 class. Now, Judd Miller weaving, waiting to pounce and waiting to put the foot down. 425 brake horsepower is about to be let loose in that SR10 machine. Judd Miller will bring the field to the green once again. And Mike Anzaldi further back, you can see a couple of white cars there with a little bit of yellow. Keep an eye on those because that is Mike Anzaldi trying to hunt down Chris McMurray. As around the outside goes John Field. He's so good on opening laps and restarts. He's not frightened to have a go. Of course, it unraveled for him in the previous race, but this time he gets around Judd Miller. And unfortunately for Steve Jenks, he just doesn't seem to be able to get it hooked up after having a slower couple of laps. John Field really going to the inside of that final corner. Turn 8 of those S's. And Field now looking to come out onto this back straight, and he's certainly managed to gap Judd Miller and has extended his lead tremendously. And there is Jim Booth motoring past Gustavo Raffles, so that battle continues. Further back, we'll wait and see what's happened in Pro 1340. How are the points shaking out as Palmer Miller looks to come alive, and Anzaldi is in front of Chris McMurray. So this is crucial for Anzaldi. Meanwhile, Palmer Miller can taste second place, and he's through on Alain Dursey. Dursey comes back to the inside. They're using all the track and a little bit more. Switch back and switch back again. And this has allowed Anzaldi, who's leading the 1340 class, to close back in. He's got to be careful not to get in someone else's scrap. Dursey somehow keeps his nose ahead of Palmer Miller through 19. We'll see what happens as they go into the final turn. Miller's not close enough to make this one stick. Dursey runs wide. Miller still looking for a slipstream. And Austin Riley, thinking all of those points he had earlier today have vaporized. Palmer Miller with a strong look to the inside, but couldn't get inside enough of Alain Dursey, who shuts the door into turn 1. So second place for Pro 1500 being furiously fought out there. And this has given Mike Anzaldi a good opportunity just to jump on the back of the gearbox of the Pro 1500s and try and get pulled along here out of the way of his championship rival Austin Riley. And he'll be hoping now, with his job done, that Chris McMurray doesn't give up any more positions. So again, side by side they go. Alain Dursey, Palmer Miller. Who will win out coming down into the hairpin? Palmer Miller into the inside. Dursey right on the outside, looking for a switchback through the stadium section. Dursey hanging back a little bit. He's so good in this next couple of corners. Through 15, always seems to be able to make moves stick. Not this time, not close enough to the back of the 32. That's what a champion drives like. Palmer Miller stamping some authority on this Pro 1500 Championship. He's just been there when he's had to be. Hasn't always been the fastest, but has collected points and more points and points again every lap. Now, the pit window just opened, I believe, and into the pits immediately goes Austin Riley with Reed Stewart behind. Meanwhile, Anzaldi elects to stay out, hopes that he can get some clean air. So does Chris McMurray. And the 1340 class leaders, nose to tail. Austin Riley hoping for the undercut. And it could be a good strategy. We saw that the 1500 class cars were really holding Anzaldi up a little bit. If he can't get that clean air, it'll be tough for him to get in enough clean laps to keep the young Canadian at bay. And certainly this gives a great opportunity for Austin Riley to leapfrog a couple of cars and perhaps extend his championship lead. So the pit stop window lasts for 10 minutes. All drivers must make that mandatory stop. It's 60 seconds from the pit in loop to the pit out loop. And a couple of cars now trundling back out of pit lane. Definitely seems that Anzaldi is certainly not getting held up anymore by Lane Dursey or Palmer Miller. Palmer Miller streaking away after being released from the 09 machine. So the big trick now is, when will Anzaldi pit? Will he just wait and hope that there's a full course caution? Be looking at his lap times, the team's assessing what's best to do, keeping an eye on Austin Riley as more cars come into pit lane. And Jason Plotke has elected to follow Jim Booth in. Meanwhile, Dan Decker's in. Dursey having a very, very solid weekend, on for another podium in Pro 1500. I believe that Palmer Miller has also made his way into pit lane. Mark Allen with a personal best that time by 2:18.8. Scott Wagner also starting to find a rhythm at a 2:17. But John Field, the fastest man so far in this motor race, a 2:11.8. Palmer Miller back out of pit lane. And a bit of a drag race going on in pit lane. In fact, it looks like someone is very, very slow going up the hill. Not sure what's going on there, but a car very, very slow up the hill into turn one from pit lane. As Palmer Miller streaks through. No dramas for him through the high-speed S's. Beautiful shots coming from Circuit of the Americas. And we'll have to wait for these, for the order to sort itself out after these pit stops. 5 more minutes remaining in the pit window. Palmer Miller can't afford to be balked here. Quick to dispatch one of the slower cars. And now some fresh air. So S's Racing doing a good job, really, of putting him out into some clean air. And behind him, Storm's Jim Booth in the McDonald's machine. There's Austin Riley. So Austin Riley has come out in the vicinity of Palmer Miller. Of course, he was in the vicinity of Palmer Miller when they went into the pits. Again, we're just waiting to see where some rivals go. Meanwhile, Gustavo Raffles has just put in a 2:12.8 as Jason Greenwood comes into the lane to make his mandatory stop. So whilst there's a bit of spread here in the cars, it's going to tighten up a lot very quickly, because there's going to be a whole lot of cars feeding back into the field. Two races going on at the moment, those that are pitted and those that haven't. John Field in the lead from Steve Jenks. Gustavo Raffles is showing third outright at the moment. Still first in Pro 1500. Judd Miller is in fourth position as we watch the 27 of Reed Stewart, who stormed up through the field, earning himself the Sunoco Hard Charger Award in this morning's race. Chris McMurray showing he is on top of Pro 1340 at the moment, ahead of Mike Anzaldi and Austin Riley. Judd Miller, I think, just had a moment coming onto the front straightaway as John Field comes in to pit lane. So that was disaster for Judd Miller if that's the case. Had a half spin as Gustavo Raffles also makes his way in. Bit of a lock up there. So a fast in lap for Raffles after setting a personal best as well. Trying to set up this pit stop perfectly. And Mike Anzaldi also in, getting a little bit balked by Chris McMurray. So Anzaldi behind McMurray. So before this round of pit stops, McMurray had got back in the lead of 1340. We'll see what happens in the pit lane. Austin Riley, interestingly enough, behind the 27 of Reed Stewart. So perhaps a slow stop for Austin Riley. Again, this could get interesting. Austin Riley can't afford to give up too many positions on his rivals, and this is going to be extremely close. So Austin Riley, and Reed Stewart has a huge lockup going around the final corner, and this is going to give Austin Riley the opportunity he needs. Meanwhile, out into turn one goes the front runners in the 1340 class. Austin Riley has been relegated to fourth, I believe. Yeah, Austin Riley has found himself back in fourth in Pro 1340. Chris McMurray in the lead and slow on the circuit. Jason Plotke so would you believe, at the top of the charts at the moment, it shows Gustavo Raffles in the Pro 1500 class from Alain Dersey. Scott Wagner leading Platinum momentarily while these pit stops play out. Palmer Miller getting past Jim Booth. And a few more drivers in right before the pit window closes. So if anyone hasn't pitted, they need to now and need to quickly. That pit window shutting in 9 seconds. I think just about everyone has made the stop. Only a couple of drivers now still out there. Alain Dersey, you can see in pit lane as Gustavo Raffles goes past. So Raffles has certainly retaken the lead in the Pro 1500 class. And those stellar laps before and after his pit stop working out well. Meanwhile, Chris McMurray is ahead of Mike Anzaldi. And wait and see how many cars are between him and Austin Riley. Certainly one. So Reed Stewart now a pawn in the championship game, because Reed Stewart is between Mike Anzaldi and Austin Riley. So this works out well for Anzaldi, as Raffles looks to make this 3 for 3. Talked so much this weekend about how this young man has progressed as a driver, and he just continues to impress. In fact, impressing a lot of people in the paddocks at the Blue Marble Radical Cup. Makes its way into. He starred in front of the IndyCar crowds. He is starring again here at COTA this weekend. And it just seems that Raffles is so in tune with the SR3 1500. Just makes it look effortlessly easy. And just hooked up so well, that car. Always pointing down the racetrack. Never looks like it's running out of road or understeering. Smooth as silk is Gustavo Raffles. Pushing hard, just picking up a little bit of curb. But never putting a foot wrong this weekend, and he continues to lay down the laps. We'll see what he does as he crosses the line. His personal best at 2:12.7. So Gustavo Raffles almost using this race as a qualifying session. Faster and faster as he goes as the fuel burn, as the fuel load comes down. These Hankook tyres do like getting up to temperature, on the SR3s in particular. Palmer Miller second in Pro 1500. Alain Dersey in third. Kent Myers impressive fourth. It's interesting because Dersey is certainly behind on the racetrack. Palmer Miller going through turn 20 onto the long back straightaway. Just wondering if our timing and scoring is still catching up a little bit. No, Dersey is behind Palmer Miller, that is correct. What I'm seeing on the screen matches the timing and scoring. Jim Booth in the middle of them. And this could be critical for Palmer Miller. If Jim Booth can hassle him too much, Alain Dersey might look to capture second place. Dersey's so racy in this morning's race against Aurora Strauss, and Aurora definitely being clever to just bow out in that final battle through the final couple of corners. It was getting pretty ferocious, and I think given where she was on the inside of the carousel, it was probably pretty clever to live to fight another day. Of course, it's come all unstuck for her in this final race. And out earlier. John Field laying down a 2:10.6. So Steve Jenks has come out in this round of pit stops ahead of John Field. John Field now with work to do. Jenks is looking for a win here, desperately looking for a win. And again, with the championship now on the line, everyone thought Robert Rossi had wrapped this thing up. Now, with him sitting this race out, it's all to play for again. Steve Jenks, John Field. The other question that we've got is, where has Judd Miller gone? And all of that commotion with the pit stops, Judd Miller is showing down in 24th. Didn't see him on the side of the racetrack. Might have been too busy with my head buried in the timing screen. But poor old Judd Miller, after taking some tremendous podium finishes here this weekend, is right down the order. So could Jim Booth come through with a podium in the Platinum class? Kent Myers, the number 99, doing a sterling job in Pro 1500. Running fourth at the moment. And onto the straightaway comes Steve Jenks in the 68 machine. He's certainly stretched a little bit of a lead over John Field, but John Field is putting in the laps. A 2:10.6 previous lap, then it was a 2:11 flat. Still faster than Steve Jenks, who just did a 2:11.1. So whilst Jenks has responded a little bit, it's clear that Field has more pace. Not that last lap though. And we're running out of time here for John Field to close in on the back of the 68 machine. Palmer Miller, again, he's come alive in this final race. He's lapping in the 14s. Steve Jenks, the 68 machine, has been a bit unlucky this weekend, or certainly in race one. An unforced error hitting the pit speed limiter coming out of turn 15, and then some kind of mechanical gremlin getting the better of him. Stormed back in race two. He'd set the fastest lap of the race in race one. Came through with second place in race two, and now looks to go one better. Group A racing. Jonathan Scarillo, Lenny Tumaz will have everything crossed down in pit lane. Wishing, hoping that Steve Jenks can bring this one home. Six minutes remaining on the clock. John Field within sight of the leader, pushing hard, using all the track at the exit of turn 19. And again, on the final corner, we'll see what the gap is now. Jenks through. And Field, 2/10 he took out that time. 5 seconds in it. So Field with plenty of work to do. Jim Booth has come through these pit stops impressively. Gentleman Jim in the 63 machine, running third in class at the moment. Scott Wagner up in 4th as well. He's done well through the pit stops. Jason Plotke in 5th. Jason Greenwood rounding out the top 6. And Judd Miller is no longer touring. Wow, as the Pro 1340 battle is really heating up down the front straightaway, just in front of the commentary booth. It looks like Mike Anzaldi is lunging to the inside, but he gets the door closed in. Chris McMurray knows how to race a car. The LMP driver making it hard for the reigning champion. McMurray himself, the front runner out at Apex Country Club. And Anzaldi can taste gaining back the advantage in the championship. And look at him go. Oh, he runs wide. Tries to gain on position on Chris McMurray. Throwing everything at it is the reigning Blue Marble Radical Cup Pro 1340 champion. Meanwhile, his championship rival is back there in the green and yellow and blue car. And what Anzaldi wants to do is put 2 cars between himself and Austin Riley. Anzaldi a little bit further back on the front, on the back straightaway. Perhaps Chris McMurray running a little less wing, faster down the straights. Anzaldi closing up around the corners. Gains into the braking zone. What will happen through the stadium section? Anzaldi, I suspect, will be extremely quick, extremely aggressive. He's certainly closing in on the 200 machine. The Menu Labs Crown Concepts Apex Motor Club car of Chris McMurray in the lead of Pro 1340, but for how much longer? The clock is winding down. Anzaldi's opportunity to claw back the points that he lost in the previous race is coming to a close. Anzaldi a little bit further back this time as they head on to the front straight. And unfortunately for Anzaldi, the Pro 1340 car right behind him now is his rival. So even more critical for Anzaldi in the number 1 to get past Chris McMurray if he wants to close that gap in the points, because Austin Riley has found his way past the 27 of Reed Stewart. And Anzaldi not quite as close as he was on the previous tour. This is where he seems to gain just through this section here. Will he dive to the inside? No, trying to focus on getting a good run onto the back straightaway. Anzaldi in the slipstream of the Menu Labs car. Here we go. So he did remain close onto this long back straight, trying to tuck himself underneath the wing of Chris McMurray. Anzaldi thinking about it, sizing up as the white flag comes out on Steve Jenks. So Anzaldi should have this lap in the next one as Steve Jenks starts his final tour here at Circuit of the Americas. What a weekend it's been. Huge amount of racing here. Over 30 cars on the grid of the Blue Marble Radical Cup as the number 1 machine has a look to the inside. Very, very close as they head into the carousel. Anzaldi hustling the back of Chris McMurray. Surely knowing, seeing in his mirrors, that his points rival is closing in. Anzaldi mentioned on the grid that he was really commiserating as he stood on the side of the track during the last race, but calming himself down, realizing that he was still in the hunt for this championship, that it wasn't all lost, that he had everything to play for, and was in very, very good spirits on the grid. seem to be really focusing on the task at hand. And through turn one, he's got one more lap. Can he do it? He'll certainly make up 5 points on young Austin Riley. But if he could get past Chris McMurray, that would be a big difference. Gustavo Raffles in the lead of Pro 1500 from Elaine Dursey. Palmer Miller looking for a podium. And here we go. Oh, the number one of Mike Anzalding using all the track, all the racetrack, bothering the mirrors of Chris McMurray. As around the final turn comes our race leader, our Platinum class leader, and a well-deserved winner here in the final Blue Marble Radical Cup race at Circuit of the Americas. Steve Jenks pumping the fist inside the cockpit of his SR10. He's used the 425 brake horsepower to full effect here in the final race. An outstanding win for him. Dominating, really, when you look at that gap. Back to John Field, who takes second. Jim Booth will pick up third place in the Platinum class. And Anzaldi goes to the inside, they touch. Anzaldi with a wiggle and a waggle. And he looks to be through on Chris McMurray. No, McMurray comes back to the inside. Oh, and he's gone for a spin. That has huge championship implications. Wow, Chris McMurray has turned, or certainly aided and abetted, in Anzaldi being turned around, and young Austin Riley goes through. So Austin Riley picks up second place and will extend his points lead into the final round at Sonoma. Smoke coming out, or starting to come out, certainly out of the back of Chris McMurray's car. Austin Riley right on the back of him. And they come down the straight, so it will be McMurray who takes the provisional win. I'm sure the race director will want to have a look at that. Smoke billowing out of the back of the 200 car. But crucially for Austin Riley, not only has he taken second place, but gained track position and a lot of points over Mike Anzaldi, who finishes third. Well, you got to say Anzaldi had to have a go if he was going to close in on the points from Austin Riley, but I'm sure he's kicking himself a little bit. He would have walked away 5 points closer to Austin. Now he's 5 points further behind. Gustavo Raffles taking another win from Elaine Dursey. Palmer Miller. And what is going through the mind of the number one machine at the moment? Jim Booth, an outstanding drive for the 63 McDonald's Wisco Racing machine through the pit stops. He prevailed. Jim Booth, home third in the Platinum class. A strong drive too for that man there. Palmer Miller. Not to mention Elaine Dursey. Dursey second in the Pro 1500 class. Miller third, and Gustavo Raffles in the black and blue car. Taking 3 from 3. The hat trick completed for the young gun from Puerto Rico. Kent Myers, impressive fourth in the Pro 1500 class. Greg Gorski, home fifth. Mark Allen, sixth. David Flint, seventh. Dan Decker, eighth. Richard Girosha, ninth. And, of course, Aurora Strauss coming to blows on that opening tour. Well, certainly some excitement in the final stages of that one. Steve Jenks taking a well-deserved win in Platinum from John Field, Jim Booth, Jason Plotke, Scott Wagner, Jason Greenwood, and Judd Miller in the Platinum class. We've just mentioned the Pro 1500 drivers before. Chris McMurray taking the win in Pro 1340 from Austin Riley, who extends his point lead over Mike Anzaldi, the Canadian reigning champion facing off against the American reigning champion in Mike Anzaldi, and so far, well, heading into that final bout at Sonoma, Austin Riley has the upper hand. Reed Stewart home fourth in Pro 1340 from Vince Switzer. Then it was Hugh Leahy, Evan Wolf, and Ben Blander. David Albin rounding out the top 9. What a race that has been. Excited to go down and celebrate the victors and commiserate with a couple of others. It's time to spray some champagne, perhaps drink a little bit of Blue Marble. This has been the Blue Marble Radical Cup here at Circuit of the Americas. We'll see you all in a few weeks at Sonoma for the grand finale in wine country. What a weekend it's been. Hot weather and even hotter competition here at Circuit of the Americas. We'll see you next time.